Hey there, it's great to be with you today, and I just want to share some thoughts with you today about faith and what it means. But there's one thing I want to just to share with you, and it's just a little thing that I'll close it out with, and perhaps you'll catch on to what I'm saying is, here's the thought. Sometimes delays are created for greater outcome. And what I want to talk about today is the two examples of faith, and they're taken from the fifth chapter of the book of Mark. And people pretty well know the story. I want to talk about Jairus and his daughter, and also about the woman with the issue of blood. And it's faith coming from two different perspectives. Now, in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, it starts out with the story of the demoniac man in Gadara and how Jesus set him free. And so all that took place, and then Jesus is coming into the city with the disciples, and Jairus, who is a leader in the synagogue, is waiting for him. Jairus has a mission, if you will. His daughter is desperately ill, but he believes that if he comes to Jesus and he talks to Jesus, he believes that if Jesus follows him and goes and lays his hands on his daughter, that his daughter will be healed. So Jesus agrees to it, and he starts moving onward. And then all of a sudden, Jesus feels somebody touch him. Well, the context there is the woman with the issue of blood, and I'll quote the scripture. This is from Mark 5, starting at verse 25. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. When she heard of Jesus, she came in the press behind and touched his garment. For she said, if I maybe touch his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt within her body that she was healed from the plague. We know that it goes on to say that Jesus turns around, stops everything, and says, who touched me? And the disciples say, well, Lord, there's so many people around you. What do you mean, who touched me? But Jesus said, I felt virtue flow out of me. Well, the woman was found out, and she came to Jesus and said, and she confessed all that had taken place, why she had been there, what took place, how she felt it. And Jesus said to her, he said, be of good cheer, your faith has made you whole from this plague. The faith made her whole. She wasn't healed, she was completely made whole. And one of the key points here is that she said within herself, she qualified, she touched his garment, and it says, for she said within herself, if I can but touch his garment, I will be made whole. Her faith got her and put her into action, because we know that with the issue of blood, she was unclean. So her actions to go through and touch Jesus' garment could have cost her life, because with the issue of blood, she was unclean. And according to the law, she could have been stoned to death. But she set that aside because she had direction and purpose to do what she went to do. Well, she's taken care of. And while this was going on, people from Jairus' house came and said, don't trouble the master anymore, because your daughter's dead. Now, Jesus heard what they said, and he simply looked at Jairus and said, don't be afraid. Come with me. And it's interesting that Jesus only allowed Jairus and Peter, James, and John to accompany to Jairus' house. The Bible doesn't really tell you how far away it was, but if you look at the time frame between him coming to Jesus and the incidents with the woman with the issue of blood, and then again hearing what he heard and then going back, it might have been a period of time. And it's interesting that when they got there, the professional mourners were already there. But Jesus said, she's only asleep, which literally meant she's dead. But again, he reiterated, be not afraid. So they put everybody out, and they went to the room. And it's interesting that Jesus took her by the hand. He didn't lay hands on her, but he took her by the hand and spoke to her, "Maiden, arise," and she arose. And he told the people, he said, "Now, feed her." It's interesting, the Bible said that all those that were there were amazed at what this took place, which is strange because the three disciples that were with him had already seen other things happening. But here's my point, is Jairus went to Jesus by faith, believing that if he came, he would lay hands on her and she would be made well. The woman with the issue of blood moved and approached Jesus. Her faith drove her to touch Jesus. Both were by faith. Both had miraculous results. Here's the point of what I opened up with. Sometimes things are delayed on purpose for a better outcome. Jairus thought he was going to come lay hands on his sick daughter. But in fact, he rose his dead daughter to life again. Think about it.